Joining us from Washington, D.C. is James Hohmann, national political reporter for Politico. James, good morning to you.
Good morning, Terrell.
When you take a look back at Mitt Romney's trip overseas, how would you rate it? Did he succeed?
Well, it wasn't the triumph that he had hoped for, but it also was not the debacle that his critics would suggest. In a lot of ways, Romney's trip, the story of Romney's foreign trip is the story of his campaign. He has these incredible moments where he looks like a president in the wings. He looks like he's ready to take command, and then he puts his foot in his mouth. And it's this recurring cycle that we've seen the last 2 years, and we saw it time and again through this 6-day, 3-country trip.
But a big part of the reason for this trip overseas was to bolster his image on the world stage. Did he do it?
Well, he did it in 3 ways. I mean, he definitely got everything he wanted out of the trip to Israel. He was on the lead of every newspaper on Monday, standing at the Western Wall, praying on a holy day. He gave a very well-received speech by the Jewish community, talking in very tough terms about what U.S. policy should be toward Iran. And that was the goal, to appeal to Jewish voters in places like Palm Beach, Florida, and the donor community. And he succeeded. You can't be too pro-Israel with that group, and he kind of checked that box. On the other hand, he put his foot in his mouth. He said a comment comparing the Israeli and Palestinian culture that caused an outcry. He made a comment when he arrived in England about the British people not being prepared. And so he ended up spending a lot of time on defense and missed a lot of opportunities to really establish himself as this global statesman. But on the other hand, it wasn't all for naught.
So with those missteps, James, does Romney come back from this, or is this something that voters will forget about come election time in November?
This is ultimately not going to sway many votes, if any. People aren't going to remember the comment that Romney made about Palestinians or some of the back and forth in Poland. And that's one of the things that frustrates some on the Romney campaign. There was actually a lot of division before the trip about whether the governor should go. Some felt that he should have been back here in the United States talking about the economy and his plan to create jobs, criticizing President Obama for that "you didn't build it" comment, and that by going abroad, he distracted himself from the core message that could win him the race.
Speaking of being back here in the United States, it was announced that San Antonio Mayor Julian Castro will be the keynote speaker at the Democratic National Convention. He will be the first Latino keynote speaker. What's the strategy here? Does this help President Obama?
It absolutely helps President Obama. This is a key constituency. Texas is not in play, but you have to remember the Republicans have a lot of very bright, rising stars who are Hispanic. Marco Rubio in Florida, Susana Martinez in New Mexico, now Ted Cruz in Texas, who just won the Republican Senate primary last night. And so having someone like the mayor of San Antonio stand up in prime time and lay out a case to Hispanic voters around the country for why they should vote for Democrats is good. And the polls show that overwhelmingly Democrats maintain a huge advantage with these voters, much bigger than Obama even had over John McCain back 4 years ago. So it's another reminder that Republicans have a lot of work to do and that Democrats realize that they can't take this growing community for granted.
And what do we know about Julian Castro? What makes him such a star?
He's someone who challenged the kind of entrenched San Antonio machine. He came up in not the traditional way. He's very young, and in Texas, no Democrat has won statewide office, in 2 decades. And so the Democrats just don't have a very deep bench in Texas. Latinos, Hispanics are obviously the future of the Democratic Party in that state, and so he really fits the bill for what Democrats see their future being in one of the country's biggest states, a real mega state.
And then the Romney campaign revealed Mitt's VP smartphone app. Apparently this is where we're going to learn who the VP candidate for Mitt Romney will be. Beyond the strategy for this, do we have any idea who that candidate might be this morning?
Romney apparently has not made the decision. They're planning a bus tour for the week before the Republican convention in Tampa. Romney has said he's talking with Ann every day. The conventional wisdom here in Washington is that it's going to either be Rob Portman, the Ohio senator, or Tim Pawlenty, the Minnesota governor. Romney doesn't seem to be suggesting that he's going to go bold. He seems to want someone who's not going to do him any harm, who is going to help shore up one of his weaknesses. He's not going to try to throw the Hail Mary pass we saw in 2008 when John McCain picked Sarah Palin.
Curious minds certainly want to know. James Hohmann, national political reporter for Politico. James, thank you so much.
Thank you, Terrell.